So I was sharing with some of the people who'd come to my booth upstairs how I always get a little bit nervous before I give a talk. And the reason isn't because I'm afraid that it's not going to be a great talk or you're not going to get something out of it. It's because I want to do such a good job for you. And so the nervousness is coming from this place of wanting to be of service and wanting it to be something that has that value for you. So that when I stand up in front of you, even though I'm feeling a little bit shaky each time, I'm really standing in my authenticity. And I'm standing in my power, and I'm coming from my heart in what it is that I want to share with you today. So I think we're good to close the door now. Oh, it doesn't close. Never mind then. We're just going to leave it open, and the energy is going to flow through. Even better. So I want to begin this afternoon's conversation sharing a little bit about my own personal story so that you have an understanding of how I know what it's like to make ourselves, or what it was like for me to make myself really small in my life. And the process and the journey that I embarked on to bring myself to this place in my life where that smallness rarely shows up any longer. I had been in a 20-year marriage that was very loving in many aspects and many ways. We had met as young teenagers, we grew up together, we had children, we bought a house. We had a relationship that on the exterior, and to anyone who knew us, looked perfect. It looked wonderful. But there was something going on beneath the surface that neither my former husband or I were willing to really address. And what I know happens when there are things that are going on in our lives that we don't address when they come up, and when we push them down in an effort to pretend that they're not there, is that eventually there's this that happens. And everything blows up. And that's what happened to me. I found myself in a place in my life where I had allowed the circumstances and the dynamic of that marriage and that relationship and my experiences of it to get really, really small. To the point where I didn't even recognize what was going on in that relationship that was no longer healthy. And there was this wonderful series of events that led to a big wake-up call. Who's had a wake-up call in their lives? 2, 3, 5, yeah. Right, they show up when we need to make changes and we haven't been listening to ourselves and our inner voice and our inner guidance. So I had a series of wake-up calls that brought the blinders off and made me realize that I had completely isolated myself from friends, from family, and from my own heart. I had let myself get really, really small. And I couldn't see any longer what my worth and my value was. Intellectually, I knew that I was a good mother, and I knew that I was a good partner, and I was beginning my business, my healing business, and I knew that I was helping people along their healing journey and making a difference in their lives. I knew that intellectually. But inside, there was a piece that was missing. There was a piece, this little voice that kept showing up saying, "You're just faking it. You're just faking it. It's not true." And if anybody could really see how small I was feeling, and if anybody could see that I didn't believe the things that were being reflected back to me about how other people viewed me, I couldn't even imagine what that would be like. It would have been awful. So I kept this really happy face and this really strong persona, it was a true part of myself, but there was a disconnect between that I was thinking intellectually and that I was feeling emotionally. So I had to begin this journey towards a full sense of myself as having value and having worth, so that the external self-confidence that everybody else saw and admired was reflected by a true sense of confidence on the inside. The journey took me through my healing practice, through all the beautiful and amazing people that came to see me, because their healings always became my healings, and there was always a reflection there of where I was at and where they were at. And it came through a decision that I made that if I could not be my authentic, true self within the context of that relationship that I was in, that something had to change, that I had to step out of it in order to really show up for the people that I wanted to make a difference for in their lives. The culmination of that is where I find myself today, which is doing public speaking, teaching classes, writing a book and creating a deck of healing oracle cards for people, creating a line of healing products to help you on your journey. And each time I create something that takes me further out into the world, I have to face that little voice that says, not you. There's enough books and oracle cards out there. There's enough healing products out there. You don't need to do this. But that voice gets smaller and smaller because what I experience each time I choose to step into these intuitive knowings of how I can make a difference in the world, it gets easier. And my sense of self-worth is no longer, it's not even a question. And it's coming from a place of genuine authenticity and love for myself, for the interactions and relationships that I have with all the people around me. One of the amazing things that happened for me when I chose to step along this journey, and let me say this, it was not an easy choice. There were many times when I wanted to go back to what I thought I knew was comfortable, but the universe has other ideas. So every time I step forward into it, there's a little bit of me that goes a little bit farther out into the world. And where that takes me is into this amazing piece of this journey towards self-worth and self-value, which is something that I call the 90-10 rule. Now, I know there's a couple people in the room who know what this is because they've taken my classes. It's this: 90% of the time, nobody is thinking about you. So feel that for a moment. 90% of the time, they're not judging you. They don't care what you're wearing. They don't care what your life is like. They don't care what your troubles are. And not because they don't care and love you. They don't care because 90% of the time they're thinking about themselves. And they're worrying what you're thinking about them. So you're all walking down the street, bumping into one another, and your concern and worry about what somebody else thinks about you is not at all what's in their mind. They're worried about what you're thinking about them. And feel how much energy it takes to be so worried about what everybody else is thinking about you. So many of my clients and students come to me with this fear and worry about the judgment of others, to the point where they're actually living their lives so concerned about what other people are thinking about them and wondering how that they can fit into that person's expectation of them, that they have no idea who they are. So if you know that 90% of the time, nobody's thinking about you, doesn't that free you up to spend that time thinking about yourself and getting really clear on who you are and what you want out of life? Now, the other 10% of the time, they are thinking about you. Of course they are. What if in that 10% of the time that they are thinking about you, what they're thinking is, wow, she's so beautiful. Oh my gosh, I can't believe the opportunities that are coming to her. Oh, he just said the most amazing thing. So now 100% of the time, they're not thinking about you, or when they are, they're actually thinking something really positive about you. Here's the other piece to this. It's none of your damn business what anybody else thinks about you. You have no control over how they react to you, how they respond to you. So your job, your responsibility is simply to show up and let them see you and let them make up their mind about you. Because whatever they decide about you is all about them. It's not about you. In that 10%, though, when they are thinking about you and you're thinking about them, there's a really amazing connection that happens. That's the authentic connection. I'm sure and I hope that you've all had the experience of this with at least one other person in your life where you met somebody and you went, oh, thank goodness I can just be myself. No judgment, no apology. You just show up and they see you and they get you. All right? The last so important piece of the 90-10 rule is this: you are not going to be everybody's friend, and everybody is not going to be your friend. Some people won't like you, and you won't like some people. But think of it this way: you don't want 7 billion friends on Facebook. That's a lot of traffic. So look to your relationships and allow those relationships that hold you in high esteem, where you know that that connection is real. Let those relationships be the ones that hold you up. And let those relationships be the one that reflect back to you your value and your worth. And the next time somebody says to you, whether they're a complete stranger or your dearest friend, "You look amazing today, Ursula," say, "Thank you." That's it, just thank you. Without feeling like you have to immediately give it back to them. So do you. You look wonderful too. Or deflect. Oh, no, I didn't wash my hair today. Because if you deflect, or if you immediately give it back to them, you've done them an enormous disservice. They've given you something from their heart. They've shared with you something that they see in you. That's a huge gift that they've given you. And if they've done it from their heart and true authenticity, they've just done it to make your day. They've just done it because it felt right. Not because they want a compliment in return. And certainly not because they want you to pretend like it's not true. So the next time somebody says, "You look wonderful today," or "Good job," just say, "Thank you." And see how that feels. So let's move to the Desert Errata. Because you're going to notice in here, I'm going to read it through and I want you to follow along. What you're going to notice is that the philosophy that I've just shared with you, and it is a technique as well, because it's a practice. It takes practice to not deflect or minimize or do all the things that you might normally do. It's a practice. So the Desert Errata goes like this. Go placidly amid the noise and haste, and remember what peace there may be in silence. As far as possible, without surrender, be on good terms with all persons. Speak your truth quietly and clearly, and listen to others. Even the dull and ignorant, they too have their story. Avoid loud and aggressive persons, for they are vexatious to the spirit. And if you compare yourself to others, you may become vain and bitter, for always there will be greater and lesser persons than yourself. Enjoy your achievements as well as your plans. Keep interested in your career, however humble. It is a real possession in the changing fortunes of time. Exercise caution in business affairs, for the world is full of trickery. But let this not blind you to what virtue there is. Many people strive for high ideals, and everywhere life is full of heroism. Be yourself. Especially do not feign affection. Neither be critical about love, for in the face of all arity and disenchantment, it is as perennial as the grass. Take kindly to the counsel of the years, surrendering the things of youth. Nurture strength of spirit to shield you in sudden misfortune, but do not distress yourself with imaginings. Many fears are born of fatigue and loneliness. Beyond a wholesale discipline, be gentle with yourself. You are a child of the universe, no less than the trees and the stars, and you have a right to be here. And whether or not it is clear to you, no doubt the universe is unfolding as it should. Therefore, be at peace with God, whatever you conceive her or him to be, and whatever your labors and aspirations in the noisy confusion of life, keep peace with your soul. With all its sham drudgery and broken dreams, it is still a beautiful world. Be careful and strive to be happy. This is a philosophy that I have lived my life by for the last 30 years. And sometimes I have forgotten it, like when I allowed myself to get so small. I forgot how important it is to remember my value, my true value, because if I don't remember my true value, I can't show up in the world. And I can't be of service to the people that I've come here to be of service to. If I'm doubting what I'm capable of, then how do I show up for somebody else? How do I hold space for their pain, their story? How do I be a good friend, a good partner, a good parent if I forget that I belong here, that I am as important as everything else on the planet? Not more important, as important. So there's a beautiful genuineness, thank you, in these words. And there's a real authenticity here. It's like a guidebook for how to connect with your worth and your value. Don't compare yourself to others. There's no point. Don't worry about what they're thinking of you. There's no point. Who are you, and who are you going to show up as? So here's what I know to be true, and I really want you to hear this. You are amazing. You are brilliant beyond belief. You are far wiser than you know, than you give yourself credit for. Every single person in this room, every single person on this planet. Do you know this? Do you know it to be true? Do you feel it in your body as I'm saying it? Is there anywhere where there's this voice that's coming up and saying, well, everybody else in the room, but she's not talking about me? Which is totally fine, because we're all on this journey, right? And the journey is about growing, and the journey is about learning. And we call experiences into our lives that give us the teaching that we need and the learning that we need. And we don't always love those experiences. I have this wonderful quote on my wall in my office that says this: she's willing to accept that, how does it go? She's willing to accept that she's created the things in her life, but she wonders what the hell she was thinking sometimes. And if what you've come into this world with, if one of your life challenges is to learn self-confidence and self-worth so that you can follow your path and your purpose, pretty much guaranteed you are going to have called experiences into your life, whether they be family of dynamic or relationships or job or whatever, that's going to call you on it. That's going to try to bring you down, not because you deserve to be brought down, but because that's the reflection. If I walk around all day long believing that I'm unattractive, that I'm dumb, that I can't do something, guess what? That's going to be my experience. It might not be how other people see me, but it's going to be how I see myself, which means that anytime someone else tries to lift me up, I'm going to deny it. I'm not going to accept it. And then I'm going to stay small. So what if you all showed up in the world from this moment forward in all of your brilliance? What would that feel like? What if you got up in the morning and said, all right, world, here I am, warts and all, take it or leave it, but I've got work to do. What if you knew exactly what your talents were and your gifts were? And instead of saying, I wish I could do it better, you worked on what you already knew you had. Who in this room wants to be a writer? Just out of curiosity. Yeah. Who wants to be a painter? Okay. How about a dancer? Beautiful. Are you doing it? Why not? If you have a desire inside of you to show up in the world in a particular way, but all these doubts come up and the fear comes up and you think, I can't do that and I'm not good enough, and what if people laugh at me, and what if they don't like what I've done? You're making beautiful excuses to not do what you came here to do, which is to make a difference in people's lives. Every one of you. Every path you cross and every person who crosses your path, there's a purpose and a reason to that connection. And many of us walk around for many, many years not recognizing that. And so we miss opportunities to show up for people, and we miss opportunities to allow other people to show up for us. So if you woke up every morning and you said, I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people love me. Who knows where that's from? Yeah? Saturday Night Live? Smalley? So yeah, I looked it up this morning. Stuart Smalley. This was his skit, and this skit came up in the 1980s on Saturday Night Live, and it was making fun of this whole affirmation movement. How many of us in the room remember the affirmation movement that happened in the 80s, right? I'm good enough, I'm strong enough. If you just say your affirmations over and over and over again in the mirror, they'll become true. it didn't work for a lot of people. Do you know why? Because they didn't believe it. That's right. So they said it, and their body is going, "Whoa, you don't believe that's true, so we can't make it true." And this whole fake it till you make it thing, it doesn't work with the affirmations. It doesn't work with the showing up in the world. Because if you haven't done the core work here to change those limiting beliefs that are telling you what you're not capable of doing and what's not possible for you, then you can say, "I'm beautiful," until you're blue in the face, but you're not going to believe it. And you won't hear it when somebody comes up and says to you, "You're so beautiful." So the core work. When I say core limiting beliefs, do you understand what I mean by that? So we have two sets of beliefs. We have limitless beliefs. These are the ones where you can say with full conviction, "I'm an amazing singer. I'm a great writer. I'm really good at being a mom and getting down in the sand and playing with my kids." Those are limitless beliefs. And they come out when you're really connected to them. You just say them. Not from a place of "I'm so much better than everybody else," but from a place of "I know that this is what I'm good at." Core limiting beliefs bury themselves deep down inside your root chakra, deep down inside your body, and they keep themselves hidden. And they show up as little tiny voices in the back of your head, little reels that play time and time again, telling you what you're not good at, what you can't do, and what isn't possible for you. They're not true. But they do have a life force of their own. And they want you to believe them, so they will constantly call to you experiences that reflect those core limiting beliefs. The thing is, they're not the beliefs that you came into this world with. These are beliefs that you have attracted to you, taken on. They're the beliefs of others that you've said, "I'll carry that for you." Let's say your mother never thought that she could be an artist, and so she never took the chance. And you said on some other level of consciousness, "Okay, Mom, I'm going to take that belief and hold it for you." And then as you grow up, you decide that you're not an artist either, and you can't make a difference in the world. But it's not your belief, it's her belief. And it's getting in the way of you knowing who you are. And it's getting in the way of your understanding of yourself and your worth and your value. So what can you do about that? Give it back. Right now, for a moment, think of some belief you hold about yourself, and we all have them, that is one of those, "Not good enough, can't do it, everybody else is better than me." Just let it pop into your mind. It'll be the first thing that shows up. Okay. Now, visualize a container, whatever that container looks like for you. It could be a box, a bowl, vase. And what I want you to do is I want you to place that belief into that container. Just visualize it going into the container and sitting there. So now it's external from yourself. Now, I want the first person who comes into your mind that's connected to that belief to show up for you. Where did it come from? Trust the first person that comes into your mind. Don't worry, we're not going to harm them in any way. Now, when you have that vision of that person in your mind, or that place where you found that belief, from your heart, in all loving, hand it back to them. Say, "I've carried this long enough, it's yours. You need this more than I do." Because what you do when you take somebody else's belief and you make it your own is you don't give them the opportunity to do the work that they need to do around that belief. So give it back. And you can do this at any time with anybody, with anything that comes up for you that is holding you back. Question the beliefs. Ask, is this real? Is this true? Is it true that I'm not a good artist? And I guarantee you that 98% of the time you're going to hear, "No, of course it's not true." Am I as good as Rembrandt? Maybe not, but it doesn't matter, right? Because we're not comparing ourselves any longer to anybody else. Let's move into a really awesome visualization. This is one I'm really excited to share with you. It came up very recently in a session for a client. And when I do my sessions with my clients and we do these visualizations, they're absolutely intuitive. Individual clients will receive their own visualization. It's never been done before. It's just for them. And then inevitably it goes out into the world, because that's how healing works. So what I would like to invite you to do is simply sit as comfortably as you can in your chair. Both feet on the ground, so you're nice and connected to the earth. And I'm going to take you on a guided visualization. And just allow yourself to have your experience of this. There is no shoulds with this. It shouldn't be one way or the other. Just sit with it. Close your eyes if you want to. If your eyes stay open, that's completely fine too. Do notice, though, if you zone out or fade away, because that's going to give you some clues about where you're at with your own self-evaluation. So imagine for a moment a beautiful stage. This is a wooden stage, old-fashioned, heavy red velvet curtains, wooden stairs on either side. This is an auditorium with rows of seats going up from off the stage. And behind the curtain, there is a heart. Your heart. Imagine your heart behind this beautiful curtain. There's nobody in the auditorium right now. It's just you on stage behind the curtain in the shape of your heart. And as you're there behind that curtain in your heart, you hear the door open at the back of the auditorium. And you begin to hear voices as people start to file in to the space. They're chattering, they're excited, they're talking to one another, they're finding their seats. They've all come to see your heart. How are you feeling as you are behind the curtain, feeling the anticipation of all these people, hearing them laughing and talking? Really move into what your heart is feeling at this moment. And as you are there in your heart behind the curtain, there's a hush that goes across the crowd, and the lights go down. All these people are waiting for you to open that curtain and show up fully in your heart. Peer out from the curtain and look at all those faces. These are the faces of people whose paths you've crossed. These are the faces of people who are in your life right now. And these are the faces of people who you will meet. And they're all here to see you. Before you open the curtain, take a deep breath. Get really grounded in your heart. And now open the curtain and step out onto that stage. And as you do, there's a hush again. Look at the faces of all these people. What do they look like? They're smiling. They're in awe. Their mouths have dropped open at the sight of your beautiful heart on this stage. And then they clap. They applaud. They stand up. They are so happy to see you in your full, authentic heart. They are so supportive. You've made such a difference in their lives because you have shown up in your heart for them. And all you have to do is be there and let them see you. The applause dies down. They all sit back down in their seats, and the curtain closes. And the excited chatter resumes as everybody talks. And oh my gosh, did you see that? Did you see her? Did you see him? It was amazing. And they start to file out of the auditorium to share with their friends and family what an incredible experience it was to see you like this. And for as long as you need to, you can stay behind that curtain, or you can walk down the stairs, up past all those now empty seats, and out into the world, and know that because you took a chance to show up in your true heart, everyone who sees you and crosses paths with you will be inspired to do the same. Take a deep breath in, and on the exhale, Slowly open your eyes, come back to the room, and make eye contact with somebody so you know that we're back. How was that? Would anyone be courageous enough to share what that was like for them? Come on, I know you're courageous. Yes.
Fear.
Yeah.
Like fear of the expectation and letting them down.
And letting them down. Yeah. That's a really real fear, isn't it? That's where my palpitations come from when I have to stand up in front of a group of people. What if I let them down? But did you? No. Did anyone else have that fear of what it'd be like to be seen by all these people? No? You're shaking your head. What was your experience? Would you mind sharing?
I was excited.
Oh, good.
I was just happy.
Yeah. How many people? Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
I trust the people. The first, 4 rows were family and friends.
Right.
And then when they expanded to people I know and the baker and the neighbor down the street.
Yeah.
Odd things. But I was excited. I had no fear.
Beautiful. And both experiences are completely valuable and valid. Right? How about resistance? Did anyone have resistance? Resistance and anticipation? Awesome. So there's the resistance to, I don't want to show up. And then the excitement of, but what if they really like me? What if it's all okay? What if it's really good? Any time that you know that you're going to stand up in front of people and chat with them, or you've got a big meeting, or you've got an interview, or somewhere where you have to shine, go back to that stage. Connect with your heart. Because in this beautiful woman's experience, she was fearful, but then it was okay. They all stood up and applauded you. Not a single person threw a rotten tomato. We didn't get to the bouquets, but maybe that's the next the next time we get up on stage. So this is a really powerful visualization. And whether you saw something or you felt something, because everyone's experience of visualization is different, I hope that you had some kind of an experience with it. And if what showed up for you was, say it was the fear or the resistance or the not being sure if you're going to be accepted, be okay with that result. It just gives you more insight into your own authentic self. Work with the fear or the doubt. What was I afraid was going to happen? Right? Here's the thing. What's the worst thing possibly that could happen to you if you decided to show up in the world in a bigger way?
Rejection.
Okay, that's a big one. What else? What's the worst thing that could happen? What if you got up here and stood up here and did a workshop right now? What would be the worst thing that could happen? No one showed up. They all walk out. They throw a rotten tomato. Guess what? If they don't show up, and I've had that happen, it's a workshop presenter's biggest fear. What if no one comes to my party? But what if no one shows up because there's a snowstorm outside? Because for whatever reason, every single person had something come up that morning for them where they just couldn't make it. And it wasn't because they don't love you, and it isn't because there wasn't value in what you wanted to share with them. In fact, it wasn't about you at all that they didn't show up. Perhaps your experience was meant to be the test of, okay, what am I going to do with this information that no one showed up? Am I going to make it all about me, and am I going to make myself wrong about it? Or am I going to look at it as an opportunity to do some more of my own work, or maybe schedule my workshop at a time when the Super Bowl is not on, or whatever the reasoning is? What if you didn't make it about you, and you just let it be one of those things that sometimes happens? So what if you show up and people reject you? What if that's also not about you? What if their rejection of you has way more to do with where they are in their life and their own insecurities than it has to do with you? Now, what if their rejection of you triggers something in you and you think, wow, maybe I really am that awful of a person that they don't want to be around me? Then take that as a gift to do some soul searching, to determine if what their rejection is just a reflection of something you believe in yourself to be true, and here's the opportunity to challenge that belief. Or let's say you are a selfish, self-centered person who doesn't think about anybody else, and you get called on it. Great! Do the work. Change yourself. You cannot change your circumstances. You can only change yourself. And here's what I know happens when you change yourself. People respond. And some of them will reject you. Some of them will say, I don't like the new you. I'm out of here. Because your new you challenges them to do their own work. And if they're not ready or don't want to do their own work, then you're not going to be vibrating at the same frequency any longer. And that relationship is done. It's finished. It served its purpose. Can you feel that? Okay. There's a piece to this that I want to share with you as well, which is this. You do have a responsibility to the people around you to show up in your truest form. That's your responsibility. You don't have a responsibility for how they respond to you. You don't have a responsibility for their behavior. Now, if you know that something you say or do could potentially be upsetting to somebody else, you have a choice. You can either do it anyways and see what happens. So they might either respond the way they've always responded, and you get into an old dynamic around it, or they've done their work, and you're saying to them something that would be inflammatory doesn't get the reaction that you hoped it was going to get because they figured it out, right? So again, your responsibility is to your experiences of your life and how you choose to show up in the world. The way that you choose to show up in the world could be to be helpful, to be kind, to be generous, to be loving, to be compassionate, to be patient. And if these are all the things that you choose to show up into the world with, then everybody else gets the gift of you. You get the gift of them. And all the relationships that you have with one another have a purpose and have a reason, whatever that ends up being for you. So, how many here in the room right now are feeling really awesome about themselves? Let's be honest. Okay. How many people are getting really pissed off at me at this point? It happens sometimes. Not because I'm doing anything to elicit that on purpose, but what does happen when you start looking at your life a little bit differently, and especially when you start taking responsibility for yourself, it can be uncomfortable. And you might want to go back to the way that you were before, because it's familiar, and it makes sense, and you know how people are going to respond to you, and you can predict it. But once you start doing this work, and once you start really tuning into your true value and your true worth, you can't go back. You cannot go back to feeling poorly about yourself. You might have doubts that come up over the course of time. That's fine. That's totally normal. But you'll have a whole different set of tools to work with those doubts, instead of going into the poor me, or it's all about them, or whatever it is that you do. And my goal here and my intention here today is to give you just a different way to look at the world and look at yourself in the world. Because as I said earlier, I can see how brilliant, intelligent, smart, fabulous, loving, funny, creative, artistic you all are. I know it's in there. And I want you to know that it's in there too. When I asked the question, how many people here are feeling amazing about themselves, did you guys look around? There were a lot of people that didn't put their hand up. That's okay, I'm not here to change you. I don't need you to all have your hand up by the end of the class or end of the workshop. But I'm gonna ask the question again, and I'd like you to just put to the side any of the reasons why you might not be feeling great. Even if the reason you're not feeling great is because you're not feeling well today, for example. How many people in the room are feeling amazing about themselves right now? Nice. And you know what? If you're not, that's totally okay too. This is another piece that I work with around our self-worth and our value. Hear this and let it sink in for a moment. You have never made a mistake in your life. You've never made a mistake in your life. You may have made some poor choices that weren't in your highest good. You may not have listened to your inner knowing and your wise self, but you've never made a mistake. Whether you believe it or not, you've never made a mistake. What does that feel like to think, I've never made a mistake? Woohoo. Yeah. It's a good feeling to say, I've never made a mistake. Here's what you have done. You've made choices. You've made choices, and you've had the experience of those choices as they unfolded. And sometimes the experience of those choices didn't feel good at the time or in retrospect. But that doesn't make it a mistake. What it makes it is an opportunity to have the experience. And at the end of the day, whether that's actually the end of the day or the end of your life, it's all going to get you to the same place. So instead of living in regret and guilt or resentment or worry that you've made mistakes in your life, what if you lived in the energy of, I did the best I could with what I knew at the time? And you forgive yourself. You just forgive yourself. Because you didn't come here to be perfect. Okay, how many people in the room thought they came here to be perfect? Just saying. Yeah. No, I'm not saying I am perfect. I'm saying I thought I came here to be perfect. There was a time in my life where I thought I came here to be perfect. It turns out you came here to be human. And humans are flawed, imperfect. They make poor choices sometimes. They fall down. You know what is the most important thing about when you fall down? Not how you fell down. It's how you get up. That's the most important thing when you fall. That's the most important thing when you have that wake-up call. Whether it's a car accident, the death of a loved one, a serious illness, loss of a job. It's how you stand up afterwards that makes the difference to your sense of yourself, right? How many people in the room are feeling awesome about themselves right now? We're getting there. All right, we're getting to the close of the workshop. I want to give you a quick and really powerful visualization before we open up the floor to questions if anybody has them. So what I'd like you to do again is to put your feet on the floor, nice and centered. In your body, there's a place called your root chakra, and it's down in your pelvis. And I want you to imagine the heaviest ball you can sitting on the floor of your pelvis, like one of those medicine balls that you had in high school. It's really, really heavy. And it's dense. It's solid. This ball holds every single time you've ever put yourself down, beat yourself up, made yourself wrong, took the blame for somebody else, lived in guilt. It's all in this heavy, dense ball in your root chakra. What I want you to do is to take a deep breath in, and as you breathe in, I want you to feel that ball rising in your belly. And take another deep breath and bring it up a little bit more. And take a third deep breath and bring it all the way up to your solar plexus. That's the spot right between your ribs, your lungs. It's still really heavy, but with your breath, you've pulled it up from the depth into your solar plexus. Now I want you to visualize, see or feel, however it comes to you, this beautiful ball, because it is beautiful. It's all just you. I want you to feel it lightening, becoming less dense. I want you to feel it vibrating at a higher frequency. And again, I want you to feel it less dense I want you to feel it lightening up. I want you to feel it vibrating at a higher frequency. And now I want you to see what color it is. And as you connect with what color it is, I want you to feel it expanding out from your solar plexus and into every single corner, crack, crease, cell, bit of your body. Breathe that color, that lightness and that vibration through your entire body and let it expand out beyond your physical being. And now I want you to bring it down just a little bit. Just bring in the brightness and bring in the vibration, bring in the expansion. And I want you to keep it in your solar plexus. This is your core. This is your connection to source. This is who you are in this brilliant ball that we've now moved and pulled up from the depth, and we've brought it up into the light so that every time you forget who you are, you can go back to this beautiful ball in your solar plexus and remember that you are far wiser than you ever thought possible, that you are beautiful beyond belief, and that you are absolutely amazing, and that you came here to make a difference in the lives of the people whose paths you cross and in the way in which you show up in the world. And take a nice deep breath in. And on the exhale, open your eyes and make eye contact with somebody. How many people in the room feel amazing in themselves right now? Beautiful. These 2 visualizations that I shared with you, take them with you. Use them, work with them. If you had a connection with them, or if you had resistance to them, even more importantly, practice them. See what happens for yourself. See what changes for yourself. Does anybody have any questions or comments about what we've been talking about today? Nobody, you're all so amazing in yourselves. You're just loving yourselves up right now. It's wonderful. Yes.
So when you're saying that we don't make any mistakes, it really just lessons the soul's learning for each lifetime?
That's right. So the question was, when I say that we don't make any mistakes, is what we experience then the lessons that our soul has brought in to this lifetime? Yeah. Because you're in constant communication and connection with the people around you, right? We don't do anything in isolation. If I have a wonderful thought one morning and I go out for my day, I'm going to be spreading the energy of that wonderful thought all around me, and people are going to respond to it. And if I wake up really grumpy and grouchy and I screech my brakes and I run through every red light and I flip someone the finger because they cut me off, I'm going to take that into my day, and that will become my experience. But neither one is a mistake. It's a choice. You always have the choice as to how you're going to respond, which is why it's not a mistake, because you are conscious of it. You know what the results and reactions are going to be. Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. Was that helpful? Mm-hmm. The answer? Okay, great. Did you find the content of this workshop helpful? Mm-hmm. Yeah? Oh, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Are there any more questions or comments that anybody has? I'm curious, what kind of colors were your balls, your sources? Yeah.
It was a pale blue feather ball.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I'm getting my goosebumps. Anybody else? White, okay. What, we had yellow? Bright blue, yeah. Green, turquoise, purple, yeah. Gorgeous. Mine was white opalescent-y, kind of white and opalescent. That's your color. That color that showed up for you, that is your primary color. I guarantee if you had an aura reading done right now, that would be one of the colors that would show up as a primary color. So work with that color. That's your healing color. That's your own personal healing color. We do have a booth here today where just as you come in back into the room, and we have a wonderful a series of healing products based on the chakras, which is one of the reasons I was asked about your colors. Come on up and see what your color is in the chakra system. I also have copies of the book that I wrote, which is called The Heart's Journey, Healing Hearts, Oracle Cards, and Guidebook. And in it is my story, a little bit of which I shared with you this morning, as to how I got on this path. In the book, I also teach you how to work with oracle cards as a healing tool and a meditation tool. And you get the story of each of the oracle cards with the 42 oracle cards. I would like to offer you as a gift for showing up here today and being really courageous in coming and talking to me. You don't know me, some of you do, but some of you don't. And really asking yourself what your worth is and being willing to find different ways of connecting with that. So as my gift to you, please come up to my table and I'd like to give you a complimentary copy of the book and the oracle cards. Happy Valentine's Day. Thank you, everybody, so much. Thank you. Thank you.